remarkable teacher. He explains in a very clear way. And also you will find many teachings online on her website, thubtenchodron.org. There are teachings about Lamrim teachings, thought training teachings, wisdom teachings. So it's very interesting to see her website. Besides a very good teacher, she is also a gifted author. She already wrote many books. At the moment, she's publishing, together with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a series of books. It's called The Library of Wisdom and Compassion. Also, this book is really interesting to read. Venerable Thubten Chodron, she is ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist nun in 1977. She is currently the abbot of Sravasti Abbey monastery. In this monastery or nunnery or abbey, you find there it's open to nuns and monks, and that I think is quite special. At the website of sravastiabbey.org, you will find more information. It is located in Newport in Washington. So actually, I just now finished my introduction. I see also that Venerable Thubten Chodron has arrived and is ready to start the teachings. Welcome, and we are looking forward to your teachings.
Thank you. So let's have a couple of minutes of silent meditation, just to settle the mind, and then we'll cultivate the motivation, and then go on to the teaching. So let's generate our motivation. And we're about to delve into one of Lama Atisha's precious texts. So as much as possible, we should try and have the same motivation as Lama Atisha. So he certainly didn't compose or teach this text for any kind of worldly concern, to get status or offerings or anything like that. So we too should not have any kind of worldly motivation when approaching his text. But Lama Atisha, with incredible compassion for sentient beings. And when you hear his biography, you can really see that he lived a life of compassion. Then let us to drop our anger, drop our resentment and our grudges and our jealousy, and look at sentient beings with the eyes of compassion, just as we want our teachers and the Buddhas to look at us with eyes of compassion. And just as Lama Atisha did everything he could in each moment to create the causes for full awakening, to benefit sentient beings, let us too do that as much as we can. And so with that kind of intention, let's share in looking at his text today. So Buddhism first came to Tibet around the 6th, 7th century. And then there was it prospered for a while, and then there was a non-Dharma king who destroyed it big time. And then the second transmission of Buddhism from India to Tibet began after that. And Lama Atisha was really influential and important in that regard, and is kind of known as the one who really started the second transmission. So he lived the end of the 10th century, beginning of the 11th century. He was born as a prince in Bengal, you know, with all the luxury that these days we are now seeing kings and princes and royal families endowed with. But he renounced all of that and went to learn the Dharma. And there's tales of him. He wanted very much to learn the bodhicitta teachings, and heard of Lama Serlingpa in Indonesia. And there's tales of everything he went through on the ship ride from Bengal to Indonesia with sea monsters and dragons and fire and all sorts of things. But it really shows, you know, the fact that he went through all of that. It shows his incredible dedication to the path and his strong wish to really learn these teachings. So he wasn't going to be deterred by uncomfortable situations or by frightening events. Yeah, those sea monsters were kind of scary. But, you know, he went through the difficulties, he went through the fear, and he got to Indonesia. And there's a couple of different places where they say he went. Some said that it was actually in Malaysia in a province called Kedah. Other people say it was Indonesia on the island of Sumatra in a place called Jambi. I had the fortune to go to both of these places in previous years. And I must say that Jambi really touched me very, very deeply, because Indonesia is a Muslim country, so they weren't into making Buddhist holy sites into tourist places. And that's what made Jambi so precious, is you went there and you really had the feeling, because you were in the middle of the jungle with the same kind of houses. Well, they weren't houses. They were like little huts up on sticks so that the snakes wouldn't come in and visit them, and the waters wouldn't flood, and the ants, wouldn't come. And, you could we walk through from one settlement to the other, just through the jungle, very much, I think, the way it was when Lama Atisha was there. It was hot. It was muggy. Yeah. And you got tired walking. But I imagined, this was a flourishing Buddhist community in previous centuries. And all these people, the weather didn't bother them. They didn't need aircon. They just dealt with the situation and went to get the teachings and didn't mind the physical discomfort. So it was really quite inspiring to be in that environment and to imagine walking through the jungle with Lama Atisha and all his cohorts. And then around Jambi, there were many different places. There was another place with these trees. I think Atisha was there also. And the trees were very twisted and intertwined, and it was beautiful, And in one way, it reminded you of all the complexities of your mind twisted together with all the afflictions wrapped up with each other. But in another way, it reminded you of, yes, the mind is complex and it can be understood and it can be tamed. And then there was another place where they said Lama Lingpa lived, and there was a hill there. It wasn't a very big hill, wide or tall, but we climbed to the top of it, and they said that Atisha, I guess, went up to the top of the hill and sat at Lama Lingpa's feet and learned the Bodhicitta practices. So I myself personally love the Bodhicitta practices. I found them so effective for my mind. So not only helping me tame the mind, but really giving purpose to life. And to be there on top of that hill, thinking again of, Lama Atisha going to talk to his teacher and study with him, again, was very inspiring. And one interesting thing about Lama Atisha and Lingpa is they were completely together in terms of the Bodhicitta teachings. But in terms of the wisdom teachings, Lama Lingpa was a Chittamatra, a Yogacharya, and Atisha was a Madhyamaka. And that our teachers usually point out that that's completely okay, that it's fine to differ from your teacher regarding certain elements of the path according to what philosophy speaks to you at that particular moment. Yeah, that we are free to examine things ourselves and make our own decisions. It's not about squishing ourselves into, believing one philosophy that doesn't really make sense to us. Yeah, so I've always respected that. Lama Atisha went back to India after that, and he was at Bodh Gaya, and he had a vision of Tara. And Tara told him to go to Tibet. And he said, "What? Where? All they have is yaks there. And maybe some sampa. And then these kind of, I don't know about these people. Okay, but Atisha told him he would be very instrumental in benefiting sentient beings if he went there. So he spent the last 17 years of his life in Tibet. And there's many stories of him being there. But you could see by the stories how he really took the practice very seriously, and how the texts that we're about to go into, you could see matched very much with how he lived his life. So, for example, there's this story, I'm sure you probably heard it, I'm sure Gelek Rinpoche told you, about Lama Atisha's cook. Yeah, do you know that story? So Lama Atisha's cook was super obnoxious. Yeah, like, totally just off the wall, uncooperative, quarreling, bigoted, the whole 9 yards, okay? And so some of the Tibetans said, why don't you leave him in India and we'll cook for you? And he said, but my cook is my practice of fortitude. Yeah, without somebody who is obnoxious, how can I develop this very important Bodhisattva practice of developing inner strength to put up with uncooperative people who say critical things and are disagreeable? So he said, I really need my cook to come along. And then this other part, I don't know if it's part of the story or if we added it on, but he then said, but maybe you Tibetans can take the place, my cook. Because I imagine it was probably difficult for him going from one culture to the other, one climate to the other, one way of seeing and doing things to another, one language to another. And he had so many things to get used to going from India to Tibet. And that makes me think of the kindness of our teachers who came from Tibet to India and then to the West. Yeah. And they could have stayed in Tibet or in India. Yes, it was poorer there, but they would be with their own people, speaking their own language, in their own culture, where they knew what was going on. Yeah. Instead, they came here to the wild, wild West and were with us people who knew nothing about Buddhism. We knew nothing about who the lamas were or how to show respect, or even that they were worthy of respect. We just came in, like this, in our hippie clothes, and sat down and said, okay, what do you have to say for yourself, Lama? And, and they put up with all of this. Yeah. We didn't do all the ceremonial stuff, at least at the beginning, with the trumpets and the longhorn, you're the Buddha, you're the Buddha. We didn't do any of that, We were just kind of, these young people. Some of you look like you're from my generation, yeah? And we just kind of came in and sat down, and they had to deal with us. And I think that might have been quite challenging for them, yeah? Especially, learning English with all these different sounds. Yeah, Gelek Rinpoche spoke really excellent English. Lama Yeshe's English was fantastic. Yeah, he couldn't say F's, so fantastic became fantastic. Okay. And I also had the opportunity when I went on pilgrimage in Tibet to stop at the monastery on the way to Lhasa, where Lama Atisha first lived, and where he, I think that's where he wrote Lamp of the Path, and maybe this text too, I'm not sure. But the text we're doing, Bodhisattva's Jewel Garland, it's a thought training text or mind training text. And this genre of texts I find especially meaningful for us and very practical. Yeah, because we've all gone into, sometimes the philosophical text, and you can get really, kind of tangled up trying to understand. But this text, it goes right to the heart. It's not difficult to understand. It is difficult to practice, but Atisha is like, so direct. Do this, don't do that, and it all focuses on looking at our mind and what is going on in our mind at any particular moment. Okay, so it's very practical. It's not intellectual at all. Okay, so, in thinking, as we have about how to teach this, because we have 4 sessions together, I have a tendency to really get into some of the words or the verses. And I started reading the text and I thought, 4 teachings, maybe I'll get through 4 verses. But the people there, you probably want to finish the whole text, So, but if I go fast, then we finish the text, but we don't necessarily get the richness of it. So anyway, I haven't decided yet which way to teach it. So we'll see how it comes out, and then we'll know. Okay. And if we need to do session 2, another set of teachings later on, and 3 and 4 and 101 and 102, then we will, because I think in learning the Dharma, then we should put our whole heart into it. Okay. And also to say that many of the terms here, when he's discussing, how to look at your mind, the terms are found in the low rig or mind and awareness texts. So I will read some of the technical definitions of those mental factors and then explain them. So you also get a feeling for the low rig texts and how they present things. And although the low rig texts, it's taught as you learn all the debating subjects and the philosophical subjects, it's actually Buddhist psychology and pointing out different mental states, different mental factors, and how they function in our mind. It doesn't cover all the mental factors. It's covering the ones that are most important for developing the path and attaining liberation or awakening, and for identifying the obstacles, the afflictions that we have that must be eliminated. Okay? So let's jump in and begin. So the Sanskrit title is Bodhisattva Manyavali. Okay, or the Bodhisattva's Jewel Garland. So homage to great compassion, homage to the teachers, homage to the faith divinities or to the deities. Okay, so interesting here, he doesn't say the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. He starts off with homage to great compassion. But homage to great compassion great compassion is the essence of the whole refuge, great compassion and wisdom. Homage to our teachers, because it's through the kindness of our teachers that we come to know the Dharma. And I think especially for the first generation of Westerners, our teachers were so important because there weren't any books. Or maybe I should say the only books there were the ones by Lobsang Rampa. Some of you may remember those. He was an Irish plumber who wrote as if he were a Tibetan and described all these mystical, magical things that, of course, sold a lot of books, but they were all made up. So, but that was about the only thing available at the beginning. So we sat with our teachers, and they went through trying to explain the teachings to us in English, or sometimes through a translator. Yeah. And so our teachers were our line to the teachings. It wasn't the books. Yeah. And I think that made a very special impact on us, in the sense that we were introduced to the teachings by people who actually practice them. Yes, books are written by people who practice too, but they aren't sitting in the room with you. Yeah, but when you get live teachings, you're in the room engaging in something that is happening now. You're not in your room, lying in your bed, sipping a cup of tea, looking at the book, looking in space. Okay, you're there and learning directly from somebody who's practicing. And, like I said, there, at the beginning, we couldn't really go look at other texts to fill in the holes or anything like that. We, kept going back to our teachers and asking one question after the other in order to learn. And then homage to the deities, so the meditation deities who also are the ones whose practices we engage in. And in Atisha's life, the meditation deity of Tara was instrumental in guiding him to go to Tibet and spread the Dharma there. Okay, then verse 1. Discard all lingering doubts and strive with dedication in your practice. Through thoroughly relinquish sleep, lethargy, and laziness, and strive always with joyful perseverance. Okay, you have an idea why that may take a week to go through? I mean, discard all lingering doubts. Anybody suffer from doubts? Yeah? We don't understand the teachings perfectly. We have doubts. What do we do with our doubts? Okay? Because there's different kinds of doubts. There's the kind of doubt that is cynical. Yeah? And some of us came to the Dharma with that cynical doubt. Okay, you say there's all sorts of different realms. Prove it. Yeah. You say we see animals, but you see that there's hell realms and hungry ghost realms and God realms. Prove it to me. You say there's rebirth. Why should I believe you? So that kind of quote doubt is actually a wrong view. Okay? Then there's doubt, because the thing about doubt is it's a two-pointed mind. Yeah, it's like a needle with 2 points. And how are you going to sew anything with a needle with 2 points? You can't get anywhere, because you start with one part and then you get stuck. So then you go to the other point of the needle and you get stuck there. Yeah. So it's like in our lives, very often, we are like a two-pointed needle. Yeah. We are so indecisive. Now here, of course, he's talking about doubt in the Dharma. But even doubt in how we run our life, we get so stuck because we want to make the one right decision, and we don't know what the one right decision is. And what we would really like is to try this one and see how it worked, and come back to the beginning, try the other one, see how it worked, come back, try the third one, see how it worked, and come back, and then decide what we were going to do, which path we were going to follow. Yeah, if we do that, our whole life goes by. Our whole life goes by. We don't do anything. Yeah. There's 3 doors, or, maybe 100 doors. You start to open all of them. You don't go through any of them. You don't learn anything. Okay? So we can see this often. Sometimes, people who just the mind is massive confusion in the sense of being unable to make a decision about what to do in their lives, Okay, but here he's talking about doubts about the teachings. But we have that too. Yeah, like, oh yeah, rebirth, in one way it makes sense. Yeah, that who we are doesn't just cease completely into nothingness, because if that were the case, then there's not much purpose to anything. Yeah, so in one way it makes sense that we're reborn, because then there's some purpose to this life, because we create the causes for what we're going to experience in next life. But on the other hand, rebirth, what kind of crazy idea is that? That you're just doing that because you're afraid of death, so you make up all these other things. So we get stuck between those two positions about rebirth. Is it or isn't it? Yeah. And we don't know what to do. And yet so much of the path depends on some understanding, or at least an open mind towards rebirth. Okay? Because, for example, with bodhicitta isn't just about being a nice person and smiling and giving people sweets. Bodhicitta is about taking them out of samsara. What is samsara? It's this cycle of rebirth. Yeah. Well, if you don't believe there's rebirth, then you're not going to believe it's possible to take sentient beings out of it, because it doesn't exist to start with. So then you don't generate bodhicitta. Yeah. Then what are you left with? Well, just being a nice person in this life, which is good, and we should definitely do that. Yeah. But the intention of bodhicitta, which is so huge and enormous, and that gives our life so much meaning, we just, we can't embrace it because we're so full of doubts. Okay? So what do we do about the doubt? I think one thing is learn. Okay? And learn from reliable teachers. So, don't go to your New Age bookstore and read a Hindu book written by some Western Swami on what rebirth is. Yeah. Look at a Buddhist book written by somebody who's a Buddhist who explains rebirth according to the meaning in Buddhism. and explains the reasonings that support the existence of rebirth. Okay? Because if you learn and you think about the reasonings, you know how His Holiness is always telling us to really use logic and reasoning. Well, if we do about rebirth, then we can really make some progress in understanding it. Yeah. So it's not about saying, oh, well, I'm a Buddhist, I better believe in rebirth. So yes, I'm filled with doubts, but I'm going to pretend I don't have any because I want to believe. And my teacher said there's rebirth, so I believe. No, that's not how you go about it. Okay. So you really study and think about it. And I know for myself, because I didn't grow up thinking about rebirth, that I wasn't taught that kind of thing as a child. But when I heard the reasonings for rebirth, it really, my life started to make sense. Okay? Because I had always wondered, why was I born who I was born as? Yeah. Why was I born? If God created me, why did He do it this way? Yeah. None of that made much sense. But when my teachers explained the continuity of the mind, and one moment of mind generating the next moment of mind, generating the next moment of mind, and how even at the time of death, the last moment of mind of one life generates the next moment of mind of the next life. Just as it did all through my life of one moment generating the next moment of mind. Then I thought, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. And that, when you combine it with the understanding of karma, then, okay, what actions I did in the past, they have results. The whole doctrine of rebirth, the whole doctrine of karma is just a system of cause and effect. Yeah, I studied science. Cause and effect makes a lot of sense. And we live our life by cause and effect. Yeah, you cook food so you can have lunch so that you won't be hungry. Okay, there's cause and effect in every aspect of our life. So here it is, again, just showing the continuity of one moment of mind producing another moment of mind. One event influencing the arisal of other events. Okay? So, when you start to learn and then you ask questions and you discuss, it starts to make sense. And then when you apply it to your life and apply things to what you've experienced and seen in your life, then you get additional kind of confirmation. So, for example, I'm just giving you my case. It was first by thinking about the reasonings that it really opened my mind. And I said, yeah, that makes much more sense to me than God. God did not make any sense. But cause and effect, rebirth, yes, that made sense. But then one time I went to give a talk in a library in Florida, and it was mostly by people who were retirees. And they asked me to talk about rebirth, so I did. And then afterwards, one woman came up to me and she said, wow, that really helped me understand my son. Because in our family, nobody is very musical. But this child, from the time when he was young, if we would go somewhere and they were playing classical music, he could identify what it was. oh, this is Beethoven's symphony number whatever, and this is Chopin. And she said, none of us knew that. How did this child know what these classical musical, things were? And she said, now I understand, it came from familiarity in his previous life. So here was an experience by one kind of average, senior citizen, understanding her child. It wasn't some made up something that sounded good. It was her experience. And I thought, yeah, that story really shows it. Mm-hmm. So you get, things that you question and you investigate, then you can see also in life around you. So I just used rebirth as an example here of doubts. There's so many more. We hear about emptiness, and oh my goodness, doubts arise there too. Yeah. If we think about the teachings. If we don't think too much about the teachings, then, we glibly say, oh, yes, things exist by being merely imputed by term and concept. They don't inherently exist. We know all the words. We can say that. What does it mean? We don't really know. How do we look at things in our life? As if they're inherently existent. Yeah. We don't look at things as if they exist merely by being imputed by terms and concept. Yeah. So with all these things, we have to really take the time and investigate and discuss with our friends, ask questions. And many of these topics, to clear the doubts, it takes a long time. You get through some portion of the doubts, and then you feel comfortable and you continue with that. And then maybe a year or two later, more doubts about that topic come up. And then you have to go back and kind of review what you thought about that made sense to you before, and then start to go deeper in your understanding. Yeah. And then that doubt settles a little bit. And then a couple of years go by and doubts arise again. So this is just the way it is, because we are working with our mind that has so many different levels of doubts and different levels of afflictions. So don't get discouraged when this kind of thing happens and you find yourself going back to what you thought you had already settled. Okay, this is it. Yeah. Actually, I'll share with you a tip from a Catholic nun. Because when I was a young nun, this older Catholic nun came to our monastery in France, and so I was asking her questions. I'm a big question box. I ask so many questions. Anyway, I said, "How do you handle crises in your practice?" And she said, when you have a crisis, it indicates that you are ready to grow. Wow. Really? She said, crises are good because you go through, you reach some understanding, everything's nice, but there's still more to learn and explore. When you have a crisis, of like, well, why is this? Why is that? What am I doing? Wow. Ooh, how? Is this the right path? She said, then that means that you're no longer satisfied with that plateau you had reached, but it means you're ready to go deeper and understand things at a deeper level. Yeah. So she said, don't be dismayed when you have a crisis in your practice. It's good. Go through it. It's difficult. Go through it. You learn something. You come out better. Okay, so that's what we do in getting rid of the doubts. Okay, so we did one whole line. Shall we go on to the next line? You see, I warned you. The next slide, and strive with dedication in your practice. So this line is really beautiful, and it's hard to do. Strive with dedication in your practice. It's so easy. At the beginning, we're really dedicated. Yeah, because everything is new, and it's like this whole world opened up to us, and we are so dedicated, and we really want to get enlightened in this life, that they what is it, kind of dangle the carrot in front of our eyes. And I'm going to get enlightened. So we're so dedicated to our practice. Then you learn a little bit, and you have the prayers memorized. So now when you chant the prayers, your mind wanders. You don't think of the words that you're saying. Yeah. The mouth is saying, I take refuge in the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Your mind is thinking about, well, after this session, I've got to go answer this and that email. Yeah. Anybody resonating with this? Yeah. So, it's like the dedication kind of wanes. As we get complacent, actually, is what it is. We get complacent. So to really strive with dedication and continue the dedication. A few tips to do that. One is remembering impermanence and death. Yeah. But of course, then that too becomes, oh yes, there's 9 points to the meditation on death. There's 3 main points. Death is definite. The time of death is indefinite. And when you die, you can't take your body possessions or friends and relatives with you. Okay, yeah, what's next? And there's no dedication even in the death meditation, kind of, because we know the points. So we get kind of lazy. We don't really sit down and think about the teachings. Yeah. So it requires, I think, a few things. Sometimes reading books can be helpful, or listening to teachings online so that you hear the topic explained again. Because every time you hear the topic, then, something new clicks. You get some new kind of insight. So that can help. Sometimes it's getting yourself to the cushion and saying, I am going to take a half an hour or an hour and really think deeply about this meditation. Yeah, I'm not going to skim over it. Yes, I know I have 10 gazillion things that are on my list to do, and they will all wait. Because right now, sitting down and meditating on death, or sitting down and doing this practice sincerely, is the most important thing I have to do, not run around and do this and that, the other thing. So sometimes it just takes plain old self-discipline. Okay? But, we can see the people who really practice with dedication. I heard a story about, who was it? I can't remember now, but one Rinpoche who was in the hospital. He was in a coma. Yeah. When he woke up from the coma, his attendant had put an altar in his room. Yeah. He woke up from the coma, he looked at the altar and he said, "The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are here. Quick, go get some offerings. We need to make offerings." That was the first thing he thought about waking up from a coma. Now that is somebody who practiced with dedication. Yeah? So, you hear examples of this and you think, wow, maybe if I tried a little harder, maybe if I wasn't so complacent in my 8 worldly concerns, I could be like that, So you exert a little bit more effort, and then the effort brings results, and then you keep going. Okay, so strive with dedication. That's your practice. Okay, then line 3. Oh no. Oh no. Thoroughly relinquish sleep, lethargy, and laziness. Impossible. Impossible. He's telling me not to sleep? No, they're not telling you not to sleep. It's relinquish sleep in excess. Well, how much sleep do you need? Well, all the doctors say I need 8 hours, but my body says I need 10 hours. And when I sleep 10 hours, I feel so much better in the morning. Yeah. Well, how much of our life then is spent in sleep? Yeah. And do we really need 10 hours of sleep? Do we really need 8 hours of sleep? Yeah. We have to listen to our body and decide how many hours of sleep we really need. And also, sometimes our mind creates the problem because our mind says, I need so many hours of sleep, and if I don't get it, I can't function. And thinking like that becomes a wish-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Oh, the cat woke me up 10 minutes before my alarm rang today. I'm not going to be able to concentrate the whole day. And then sure enough, you can't. Why? Because you told yourself you couldn't. If you don't tell yourself that, you will often find that, if you wake up early, it doesn't really adversely affect the rest of the day. Yeah. So you have to see according to, to what you really need, not according to what other people say, or even what you learned as a child. Your parents may have said, you put your head down, you don't get up until I tell you. No, see what you need. Yeah. But give up the extra time, because sleeping takes so much time and you're not even awake to enjoy it. Yeah, when you think of it, you say, oh, I love sleeping. It's so relaxing. When you're sleeping, are you enjoying it? You're not even awake. You don't even know you're sleeping. All that time goes by. Yeah. And it's not really the process of sleeping that brings the pleasure, is it? Yeah? When you think about it. Okay, so sleep. Okay, so here, I want to read from Low Rig what sleep is. It's one of the changing mental factors, yeah, meaning that it isn't always virtuous and it isn't always non-virtuous. It depends upon the motivation with which you go to sleep. But sleep is defined as a mental factor which makes the mind unclear, sure does, gathers the sense consciousnesses inward, and renders the mind incapable of apprehending the body. Sound like a good description? I'm out. Okay, it functions to let the apprehension of objects of the conscious mind degenerate. It causes a loss of consciousness, of conscious physical activity. Okay, so sleep is not itself is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. If we go to sleep with a mind that says, I am so exhausted, I just want to sleep. Finally, pleasure, I can lie down. Okay, that is a mind with seeking the eight worldly concerns. So then that makes the whole time we spend sleeping non-virtuous. If you go to sleep with the motivation of I need to rest my body and mind so that tomorrow I can get up and continue to practice, then that's a virtuous intention, and it makes the time of sleeping virtuous. Okay, so this is also why our teachers tell us at the end of the day to look back on the day, and if we've had any times when afflictions have arisen strongly, to especially anger and discontent, to really spend some time before we go to sleep smoothing the mind out and releasing these negative emotions. Because when you go to sleep angry, you wake up angry. Don't you? Hello? Yeah? Okay. If you go to sleep reading, you read the news, or at least you read, you guys don't read the American news. I think Holland is kind of probably better. But if you read American news and then you go to sleep, oh God, what are you dreaming about? Donnie and Rick, Cruz and everybody insulting everybody else. And you dream about that and you wake up and you're in a lousy mood. Okay? So you want to take care, to make sure your mind is not in an afflicted state at the end of the day. So if you're upset with somebody, if you're really craving and dissatisfied, if you feel unappreciated, take the time and, deal with that mental state before you go to bed, because your sleep will be better. Then you wake up and you're actually refreshed. Yeah, if you go to sleep angry, you wake up angry. Don't you? Yeah. You guys look as blank as these guys. Maybe we'll try it. I'll make you all mad, and then you can go to sleep and see how you wake up. Okay, so then give up lethargy. Okay, so lethargy is another mental factor, and here it is. Okay, so it's a mental factor which, having caused the mind to lapse into darkness and thereby become insensitive, does not comprehend its object clearly as it is. It functions to make the body and mind heavy, inflexible. It increases sleepiness and ignorance, and it causes laxity in our meditation and sluggishness of body and mind. Okay, so lethargy, we've all suffered from that. Yeah, right? Yeah. So, and it often occurs, you sit down to meditate, you have all your good intentions, And you get through the prayers and you start, you want to do 1 minute of breathing meditation to calm the mind. And you get through 2 breaths. And then you kind of have different images coming to your mind, like you're falling asleep. You know how before you fall asleep, there's different images and a different feeling in your mind. And it just is kind of nice. And then you go like that. Yeah. Oh, I'm supposed to be meditating. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the way it is. Yeah. So clearly we can't get any meditation done. Sleepiness, forget, we're out. But lethargy, no, we can't. Lethargy also strikes, okay? It strikes when you are sitting in the front row of the teachings where your teacher can see you directly. Yeah, that is the perfect time when lethargy strikes. Yeah, and you are watching your teacher watch you. Okay. So there's some good antidotes to lethargy. Yeah. We think the antidote to lethargy is sleep some more. Sometimes it is. If you're jet lagged, you need to sleep some more. But sometimes if you sleep too much, it makes you more lethargic. Yeah, you don't really wake up. So if you suffer from lethargy, do prostrations before you sit down to meditate. Yeah. Prostrations are not only good physical exercise, but we actually purify karma. And some of the reason for suffering from lethargy can also be due to karma. For example, in previous times, not respecting the Buddhist texts or the Buddhist images, or criticizing or making fun of the Dharma, things like that. Yeah, where our mind it's tuning out the Dharma, then it creates the karma to tune out the Dharma again, except this time by getting drowsy. Okay, getting lethargic. So the prostrations purify the karma. They also activate the body. So it's very, very good. Yeah. Put cold water on your head. Lama Yeshe, when we did pujas with the young monks at Kopan, and the young monks sometimes in the evening, they would be getting tired. Lama would take these, the little aluminum water bowls, okay, and put a water bowl filled with water on top of the monk's head. Yeah? And you're chanting puja, and you better sit up straight and chant, because if you don't, and your head nods, that water bowl is going to crash to the floor, and everybody is going to stare at you and burst out laughing. Okay, so it's a good intention, it serves a purpose. Some of you don't look so eager to try it. But maybe you should. Yeah, maybe you should. I had a water pistol some years ago. Somebody got me one, and there was one person here. I used to squirt him all the time. Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to it. I think somebody here relocated it. Yeah, but it was useful. Yeah. Okay, lethargy. And then, so we can see how lethargy interrupts our practice. And laziness. Oh, goodness, laziness. So here's the definition of laziness from the Lower Rig text. It's a mental factor that having firmly grasped an object offering temporary happiness, either does not wish to do anything virtuous, or, although wishing to, is weak-minded. Okay, so, you sit down to meditate, but you put your phone on the puja table in front of you, okay? And you say, I'm just putting it down. I'm not going to look at it. I'm going to meditate. Or I'm going to use my phone as a timer. I'm not going to look at anything. I'm going to meditate. So you start meditating. Then you glance. And, oh, there's a message. Now, we don't usually associate receiving a message on your phone with the 8 worldly concerns. But it does involve the 8 worldly concerns because somebody messaged me. I am important. I got a message. Even if it's just some spam deal trying to get me to buy something that doesn't exist. Still, somebody cared enough about me. I am important enough. I exist to receive this message. And maybe it's not spam. Maybe it's a friend telling me that they don't want to see me anymore. Or, something that I really look forward to is being canceled. Yeah. But I said I was going to continue meditating. I wasn't going to open my eyes and read any messages. I'm not getting distracted. What do? We read the message, don't we? And we say we're not going to look at them. But we leave the phone so that the messages display in front of us. And then, of course, we can't resist. We cannot wait another 10 minutes until the end of our meditation session to see what this incredibly important message for me is all about. I've got to read it right now. Anybody who suffer from that? Okay. But to put the phone away, the computer away, and not have it in front of you, when, oh my goodness, how can I do that? This is my life. Yeah. If I'm not dug into the internet, what am I doing? Okay, so laziness, there's different kinds. One is the laziness of procrastination, putting off what you can do now to do later. Okay, so that one plays a role in our practice. It's too late to meditate this morning. Mañana en la mañana. Tomorrow morning I will meditate. I will make up for missing the session today. How many times have we told ourselves that? Then the next morning, I don't really have much time. I'll just do a quick session. Okay. Or, I stayed up so late last night talking to my friend, I can't get up early and do my practice now. Okay, so the laziness of putting things off. Then the laziness of being the busiest of the busy. So this is where having your phone and your computer and all your gadgets come, because they organize our life. And I am worthwhile because I am busy. I've got to do this and I've got to do that. I'm going here and going there. And I can't just sit still and do my practice. Yeah. So that's the second kind of laziness. Third kind of laziness is the laziness of discouragement. Oh, that Lama who woke up from the coma and wanted to give offerings to the Buddha, he has such a pure practice. My mind is just, I can't do that. That's too hard for my mind. I am too much of a skeptic. I want to do other things, kind of visualizing offerings is, it's not very interesting. Yes, before I go shopping, I visualize, and that's very interesting because I plan what I'm going to buy. I visualize everything. Shopping visualization is good, but offering visualization, it's boring. Why? Well, shopping, I get the result of these nice things. Yeah, offering, it's just fantasy, make-believe. Okay? So, yes, it's fantasy and make-believe, but so is your shopping, your shopping visualization. Yeah, we put so much of our time every day into fantasy and make-believe, of visualizing all sorts of things that are beautiful with the desire that we will get them, or visualizing all sorts of frightening things because then we get afraid they're going to come after us. We're off in la-la land a lot. Okay? So bringing ourselves back to the practice and not telling, stopping this old broken record of everybody else has Buddha nature, but not me. I can't concentrate. I can't remember the steps in the meditation. I can't do this right anyway. All the other students in the class, they're all in samadhi. I'm the only one who's distracted. This kind of putting ourselves down that we are so famous for in the West, that is a severe form of laziness. Yeah. We think it's the truth of who I am. I really am that bad and that deficient. No, that's not who we are. It's just laziness, making up some kind of story. Yeah. And the story's not true. Everybody has Buddha nature. And, if we create the causes, we can experience the result. There's no reason why not. The system of cause and effect works. So we shouldn't tell ourselves that it doesn't work, so we don't need to try. No, it works, and we need to try, and we'll develop gradually. Okay, and strive always with joyful perseverance. So really love your practice, Feel that you're so fortunate for having met the Dharma, having all the opportunity to learn, to practice, the spare time to do it in. You have teachers, you have Dharma friends who support you, who understand you, and encourage you in what you're doing. So engage in your practice with joy and happiness, and without expectations of grandiose results. Just create the cause, and let the results come when they're ready. Okay, so we did one verse today. Yeah. I think we were supposed to pause a few minutes ago to gather questions.
Hello, I'm Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very interested in what you're telling about this lethargy and all of these factors that take us off our focus. It's like you're telling us to adjust the way of living in order to improve on that. Is that correct? So will that make a difference when you sit? If you live a little more sort of calm and without all these distractions and all these worldly stuff, and all, will it make it easier to actually get into focus?
Yes, quite definitely. Quite definitely. What we do between meditation sessions influences, what we, how the session goes. So what we do in our daily life influences the sessions. I just got a letter, in fact, yesterday from somebody who had visited the Abbey last summer and then went back to Switzerland, and she's finishing off her university work. And she said going back, she really saw how fortunate she had been to be able to practice here at the Abbey, where the whole daily schedule and our whole purpose is geared towards the Dharma. Because she had to go back to the university. And then, of course, there's papers due and your classmates want to socialize and people are not thinking in a Dharma way or speaking in a Dharma way. And she said she found it really much more difficult to keep up a daily practice. So yes, how we structure the rest of our lives, what decisions we make in terms of what to do, what to expose ourselves to, especially with the media, what kind of and how much are we going to expose ourselves to the media and what we learn from it, because all of that really impacts our practice. So simplifying our life is very helpful. Not just for your practice, but you just feel better when you're not like a chicken with its head cut off running there, where you can actually stop and look at somebody and smile and be nice to them. You just feel better. Instead of when you're in a hurry to do all these things.
Yeah, I'm here. My name is Marijke.
Hi.
I would like to ask, what do you do when you're living with a partner who's not a Buddhist and with different rhythm in life? Even if he's sympathetic to what you're doing, but the rhythms don't match, for example. Suppose I was going to get up at 5 a.m. every day, and he would go to bed at 1 o'clock usually. You would get problems. You would annoy people, and I think that's not a good thing for a Buddhist either, to annoy people or give them a distress. So, what would you think about that?
Okay. So let me make sure I understood correctly. You're talking about somebody who doesn't follow a regular schedule, stays up late, gets up when they feel like it, and their rhythm disrupts the rhythm of life and the rhythm of practice of the other people around them. Is that?
Well, especially if it's your partner. So you have to, if you live together, you have to adapt to each other.
Yes.
And of course, that's even both parties will be willing to do so. But if you adhere too strictly to your Buddhist rhythm, like you would have in the monastery or in a retreat, and then you annoy that other person, I think.
Okay.
Is that advisable?
Well, I don't know. One thing is, I mean, it's in that kind of situation involving two people, then if either you decide that people can do their own thing according to their own rhythm and that you will both accept each other's rhythm, and even though it's different, but because there's other times in the day when you come together and you can communicate, you don't need to be in touch all day long, so you accept the differences in how you spend some time. So there's either that, or if you feel it's very important in your relationship to be together in all those times, then both you and the partner have to find some way to compromise in it, yeah, and be happy and satisfied with the compromise. And so the partner compromises a little bit. Maybe you do too. So then you do part of your practice at another time when your partner is busy doing something else. So you make adjustments like that.
Thank you.
That's what's easy about living in a monastery. The bell rings, you go. Yeah. You don't go, well, I want to go in another 10 minutes. I don't feel like today. No, it's structured like this. Bell rings, you go.
Can you talk a little bit more about the antidotes for when you hit the complacent patches, or worse, the dry patches, which follow or precede the complacent package? Because there's another side after a while, but still, you want to use it, not just sit through it. Right? You understand what I mean? Yeah.
You mean, so you're saying how to disperse that kind of complacency and...
Yeah, and at the same time, not getting frustrated
with it. Yeah. Sometimes discussion with your Dharma friends can be very helpful. Yeah, because when you join in discussion, they bring up topics that you haven't thought of, or viewpoints on certain topics that you haven't thought of, and then that invigorates your practice. What's interesting is sometimes people want to come to the teachings, but they don't want to come to the discussions. But the discussions are actually when your mind can become more alive, because you have to think of what you believe and you have to listen to other people's ideas, and that often stimulates a lot of thought in you. Yeah. So I think discussing Dharma with our Dharma friends is quite important.
Venerable, you talk about the crisis and what the nun told you, that when you're in a crisis, then is that you're ready to grow. But how do you, while you deal with the crisis, how do you take off the dryness, like you really, like the dryness, like nothing has flavor, nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I go in crisis, I am like, there's no dryness. And everything has flavor. And it's, I don't know what I believe. I don't know what to do. How come they're doing this? No. Okay, that's not what you're feeling.
No, I'm talking when you're okay in your path, but like teachings are not alive, like...
Yeah, that's the complacency.
Oh.
That's the complacency that we've been talking about, okay? Yeah, it's like, I've heard that teaching before. Yeah, And it doesn't strike anything here. Doesn't, get you excited. Again, I think, discussing with our friends is really, really helpful. Trying to take the teachings and looking in the world and looking in the lives of the people we know and see where the teachings apply. In other words, starting to look at our life through the perspective of the Dharma. That can make the Dharma really come alive too. Yeah, instead of just reading current events of, this politician's blah-blahing about that politician. You think, like these people, what kind of karma are they creating? Yeah, and this life, they have power, but they're creating the cause to be born in a horrible rebirth in their next life. Yeah. And so you're applying what you know of the Dharma to what you're reading in the news. And then that kind of evokes something like, wow, these people who think that they're so important and wise and so on, all they're doing really is creating the causes of suffering. And that's a really sad situation, because in a number of years, they're going to die, and then what can they do about it then? Okay, so, or like now, all the pomp and circumstance about the Queen dying, and the royal family, and Harry and William, are they going to make up, or are they going to be fractured relationships, and, all of that. And you look and think, wow, again, people rich, people famous. Would I want to be rich and famous? Would I want to have that kind of life? Actually, palaces are nice to visit on a tourist visit, but I don't know that I would want to be somebody living in one, with a whole retinue of people and the paparazzi looking at every small detail in my life, and everybody having opinions about everything I said and did, and projecting all their expectations onto me. Actually, it's good to be nobody. Yeah? You can practice so much better when you're nobody. Yeah? And then you begin, again, the teachings start making sense, because you see, I may not want to be like the Queen and like that, but, a little bit more money wouldn't be so bad, and some better food and people who were more reverential to me. I wouldn't object to that. So, but then you start realizing, no, that all is a big trap, and it brings so many disadvantages. You give up your freedom. Yeah, when you are rich and famous, you have no freedom. It looks like you're important, but your life is totally controlled by trying to be what you think other people want you to be. And so in that way, you don't have freedom. So you take the teachings and you use them to apply to your life and what you see, and then they really come alive. Yeah. And then you look at that lifestyle, you go, wow, worthy of compassion. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think it's time to close now.